A very good morning. Welcome to StudyIQ English. Welcome to today's The Hindu newspaper analysis. Let's look at today's important topics from the Hindu newspaper, the New Delhi edition for the day. And we are looking at the Hindu 19th of August 2025. So let me quickly walk you through the important topics for the UPSC mains exam as well as the prelims exam. So looking at the screen, there are two topics here picked up from page number 8 that are the editorial articles for the day and hence quite important for the mains exam. The first article talks about India's expectations in the wake of US President Donald Trump and the Russian leadership meeting together. What could it mean for India? What were India's hopes and how some of these hopes seem to have been broken already? The second article for the mains talks about how India could be a model for the entire world when it comes to the problem of solving the global hunger. Then we talk about three other articles for the day, which are rather short and more prelims oriented. They talk about right from how the nominations to the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly has become a matter of great constitutional debate and controversy. Who has the right to decide how many members to be nominated to the union territories and their assemblies? Is it a decision only made by the union government at center? Or are there other stakes like the Council of Ministers also involved? So we talk about this article and then we proceed about a new bill that has been passed by the Lok Sabha, which aims at completely revolutionizing India's prison system, India's judicial system, and giving people a chance before they can be imprisoned and punished for at least minor crimes. The last article for the day again is coming from international news. It talks about a new promise, a new hope that India sees in renewed relationship with China. We know that the silhouette of history is huge. Long back, India had trusted China, only to experience Chinese sudden attack on its territory. Yes, we are talking about the war with China back in 1960s. Today, a similar nostalgia is around in the horizon as the Indian government is once again trying to revamp its relationship with China. But could it mean a better relationship in reality, or once again is it just on paper? So all these interesting topics coming up for today's discussion, and apart from that there is a science page article which has then once again in detail spoken about whether ethanol blending with petrol would be a good idea given India's commitment of reducing its carbon footprint by 33% by 2030. The article compares India and Brazil. Let's take that up for the current affairs discussion. Let's take another interesting article. Article which speaks about India's new waste management policy also in the current affairs article. But for now, let's look at these more important news oriented articles from the Hindu. A very good morning, Rishi. Welcome to the news session. So I'll begin with the first article for the day. Now, this is an editorial article, and all these articles are followed by prelims practice questions. As I said in the last section, keep us posted with these answers and you will hear back from me surely. The first article, therefore, comes from page number 8. We are discussing a topic that relates with UPSC syllabus GS paper 2. Yes, because this is international relations. And more specifically, we talk about India-US relationship. Besides, there is also a touch upon international forums like the Quad, the Quadrilateral Dialogue, having members like US, India, Japan, Australia. We touch upon this. We also touch upon the entire Indo-Pacific region as we discuss this article. So yes, this is GS paper 2 international relations. And now let's see what is the main point made by the article. So the main point made by the article is that recently on August 15th, 2025, as the US President Donald Trump met with Russian President Vladimir Putin, it was very famously called as the Alaska Summit across the world. Now, this was quite an awaited moment for the entire global community. After ages, two countries which are seeming to be standing at polar opposites of each other in terms of ideology are actually coming and sitting on one table. Let alone the fact that the main agenda of Alaska summit was supposed to be easing out the Russia-Ukraine tension. Donald Trump, who is already taking so much credit for having intervened in the Armenia Azerbaijan conflict, in the India Pakistan conflict, now says that I will also find a mediation to the Russia Ukraine conflict. He is also having a parallel negotiations with Zelensky, the Ukrainian leader. So, Alaska Summit's main agenda was supposed to be stopping the Russia Ukraine war, apart from many other issues. But for India also, huge expectations were attached from this summit. A good question would be, what was India's benefit here? And what was India hoping to go in its favor during the talk at Alaska Summit? Clearly, India had few hopes. One hope was that yes, India has from the beginning criticized the war between Russia and Ukraine. India wants peace. So, therefore, India was expecting that tensions will immediately ease down. But on a more selfish note, rather on a more self centric note, India's agenda was that maybe after the two leaders sit together and negotiate, the US pressure that is mounting on India regarding India Russia relationship will also ease down. Now, let's remember that apart from the initial 25% tariff, the United States had also imposed additional 25% penalty tariff, a punishment tariff on India. Why? Because it says that India imports crude oil and gas from Russia. So India hoped that after this summit, maybe the US government rethinks the 25% additional punishment tariff on India. That was one thing. India was hoping that US will at least step back a little bit on these sanctions or provide a greater timeline for imposing them, just like it has done in the case of China. The third hope India had was that after a long time, maybe the trade talks between India and Russia, rather India and US, which had completely stopped owing to the tariff war, as we call it, tariff conflict, maybe that long stopped negotiation of trade between India and US once again starts, given that US happens to be India's largest export partner, the highest, largest bilateral trade partner. Of course, for Indian economy, it is a loss in the negotiation. It's a loss in the upcoming times. So India was hoping that maybe a fresh round of talks are able to start again. All these were India's hope. But the hope seemed to have crashed down a little bit. Why? Because recently there was a news that a very close ally of Donald Trump, named as Peter Navarro, he has said that India is behind, or India's hand is there behind funding Putin's war on Ukraine, genocide on Ukraine. And why does he say that? He says that because India funds the oil of Russia. India is a key financer of Russian oil exports, and therefore India has a hand in financing the terror that's happening in Ukraine. That's something that is very unfortunate and heartbreaking for India. Second thing is that the tariffs and the sanctions imposed by the US are also the same. There has been no going back on them by the US. The third thing is that once again Trump says that Trump was the one who mediated Operation Sindoor. He said that if US had not mediated between India and Pakistan after the Pahalgam attack and Operation Sindoor by India, both the countries, India and Pakistan, would have erupted in a nuclear warfare, and that would have been a disaster for the entire subcontinent. It was only because of the US that this was possible. Now, this is completely defying, this is completely undermining Prime Minister Modi's position, who clearly said that India has not stopped the war due to US mediation. It was India's own internal policy decision. US seems to have had very little respect for that. So today, what is going on? The article is asking, is Mr. Trump interested in getting a Nobel Peace Prize? by consistently saying that I have been the one who has mediated between all the global wars around the world. I am responsible for finishing Iran's nuclear agenda, bombarding all three major nuclear sites in Iran, controlling Israel's expansionist agenda, stopping the Armenia Azerbaijan war, mediating Operation Sindoor, and now trying to mediate Russia-Ukraine war. Is it a personal strategy to be acknowledged as a global peacemonger and a US, led Nobel Peace Prize nomination? Is that what he is looking at? Because clearly India doesn't seem to have had any benefit from this negotiation. So, what is the lesson that India has learned after this huge embarrassment? Clearly, as per the article, we have learned five major lessons. The biggest lesson today that we learn is that whether it be the Republican Party in the US or the Democratic, irrespective of whichever party is in the power, India should maintain a neutral relationship. We should not actually favor one candidate from a particular party too much, like we have been doing for Trump. Remember, Trump wins the election and Indians celebrate. Gone are the days we can pin our hopes to one leader who will support us in future. It's an eye opener that's not going to happen. Second thing, major thing that India has actually learned is that US sanctions are all about geopolitical supremacy. They are nothing but a show of political power. They have no logic at all. India cannot cite organizations like United Nations or the World Trade Organization and find justice. It's not possible because clearly hypocrisy of US is so visible right now. We all know that US has increased its bilateral trade with Russia in the last 2 years. This is when the war with Ukraine has been going on against Russia. Interestingly, not only US but China also has been importing much higher volume of Russian oil, much more than India. But still US doesn't seem to be so angry with China. So clearly it is not about logic, it is about political power and domination. As I said the other day, it is purely about neo-imperialism, economic imperialism, where US is now trying to colonize other trade partners such as India, such as Brazil, just to maintain its economic supremacy. It could be that US is threatened by the prospect of growth that Indian economy is now looking at. The second lesson we learn is that let's focus more on ground work rather than just a diplomacy and show off. Why? Because if we remember back in 2020, there was so much celebration of Trump's arrival in India. Namaste Trump. Welcome Trump. Similarly, we had events in 2018, 2019 like Howdy Modi, where Prime Minister Modi's arrival was greeted in US by not only the Indian diaspora, but so many US citizens. The friendship between India and US was being glamorized. It seemed like India has a best friend in the US, and US will stand behind India even in case of India Pakistan or India China problem. But that was just a chimera. It was a dream. It was far from reality because that never happened. So today the need is to create a foreign policy which is not about personal chemistry between two leaders. It is about something that happens on ground, real policy change, not about bonhomie, not about friendship or quoted love between leaderships. Because after 18 meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping back from 2014 to 2019 by Indian leadership and Chinese leadership, they had 18 rounds of meetings. And despite that, China did not stop from attacking the Galwan Valley. We were attacked by China. Similarly, Trump's policies have been extremely unpredictable. There is no guarantee that today there is friendship, tomorrow there is animosity. And clearly, this 50% tariff seems to be inexplicable by any logic, even under the WTO rounds of protocols. It is absolutely illogical. So, we know that foreign policy today has to be less about personal chemistry, celebrating events, exchanging diaspora, highlighting culture ties. It has to be more about the real agenda on ground: military, trade. These should be the dominant dialogues. The next lesson India has learned is, as I said, to be neutral. Let's not interfere too much in another country's local politics. For that matter, even when Biden was in power, there was nothing much that India had lost. And today, when Trump is in power, there is nothing much that India is gaining. So, what we understand from this is that irrespective of whether a Democratic or a Republican leader wins the election in the US, it does not really determine the exact nature or the exact future of Indo US economic or military ties. It's not going to redefine that. So let's stay neutral and let's avoid over participating and over enthusiasm. Last but not the least, we have to think about being autonomous, independent. Now, we know that US diplomacy is all about pressure tactics, it's about political domination. So, why do we get carried away and scared? For example, the article says in 2018, only because US had created the fear of sanctions, India immediately stopped importing any kind of oil from Iran and Venezuela, which were profitable for India. But owing to US pressure, India did not do that. Did India get any benefit from that? Nothing at all. In fact, by doing this, India only broke down the protocols of United Nations, which was trying to mediate the US sanctions. But India favored the US. So India went against the United Nations sanctions to favor US. In return, what are we getting today? Embarrassment, punishment, tax penalty. That's all. So this only means that once we listen to the US, like we had in the case of Iran and Venezuela, today US has become even more bold. It feels that in future also India will continue to do what US says. We will follow their diktats without using our own diplomatic intelligence. And that is not the way bilateral relationships work. Last but not the least, then what's the solution? A very warm welcome, Mamta. Correct. Absolutely. Very well said, Rishi. That's what defines the situation between the countries right now. Absolutely. Now, what is the solution? What is the way forward for India right now? One clear thing is that let's diversify, and India is actually doing that. Now, recently, the talks are already in process. Prime Minister will be visiting the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in China, and already high level meetings are taking place. Like today itself, Sri Jai Shankar is meeting the Chinese diplomatic leadership. They are talking about how to bridge the gaps between them and find out an amicable solution so that the trade volume can further go up. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing is, yes, India has been busy negotiating with the ASEAN countries. Like initially, India was not in the favor of dealing too much with ASEAN because India thought that it is a China dominated forum. Then, of course, there is the RCEP. India is now further boosting its engagement here. India Philippines ties. Similarly, India Japanese ties. India is now trying to look to countries like Russia, South Africa. Very soon, we will be visiting South Africa for the G20 summit also. The purpose of all this is now to move away a little bit from a US centric foreign policy to a non US centric destination where India can have better economic, better military, much better ties. That's in our interest. Because with this nature of US diplomacy, it's very difficult to maintain economic stability, to maintain any kind of stability. Second thing is that another question that's coming up is that now very soon the Quad summit is going to happen, the Quad 2025. As I mentioned, the quadrilateral dialogue. We all know that US is a key member here, apart from Australia, Japan, and India. Will US leadership be ready to come to India? Because India is going to host this Quad summit. Will US leadership come to India? In the background of all this tariff conflict that's going on, we don't know. We are yet to see that. Second thing is that today, let's agree unanimously that India should only accept sanctions that are given by United Nations, not the sanctions that are created discretionarily by countries like US or Russia, who are trying to dominate the world politics. Now, gone are the days of the Cold War era, and India has been multilateral throughout. So let's understand that we cannot follow the whims and fancies of US or Russia. Let's try to look for strategic autonomy. Let's only believe in the sanctions created by United Nations because they are institutional. Let's not go behind US domination and do things that they say. We cannot afford that anymore. We have already learned our lesson. Last but not the least, let's have a longer term vision. The mistakes that we made in past by associating too closely with particular leaders. So it should not be about Trump that's important to India. It should not be about Putin that's important to India or Netanyahu that's important to India. It should be about entire US relationship that matters to India, irrespective of who is leading the country. It should be about Russia India relationship, not Putin India relationship. It should be about Israel India or Iran India diplomacy. It should not be about, any one particular party or one political leader who is celebrated and who is glamorized and who becomes a great support, a great cult figure for us. So let's move away from the personal bond politics to a more open, diplomatic kind of a politics, which actually is stable, which is actually sustainable, and which brings us real outcomes on the ground. So, this is what the article has argued. Let me quickly show you a prelims question based on this article. Please try to answer the question. Yes, you can post your answer in the comment box. With reference to India's foreign policy challenges in the context of the recent Alaska summit, consider the following statements. 1. The United Nations imposed secondary sanctions on India. That's the additional 50% punishment tariff, primarily for its purchase of Russian oil. 2. India's long standing policy is to adhere to only sanctions mandated by United Nations. And 3. The Modi government credited US mediation as the reason behind Operation Sindoor's ceasefire with Pakistan. 4. Excessive dependence on summit diplomacy, like Howdy Modi or Welcome Trump, has sometimes undermined India's long term strategic interest. If you have understood the article and this discussion, it's a very easy question for you. Try to pick out the right option and let me know the answer. Now, let's proceed with the second article for the day. Again, editorial page. It's a mains oriented article, a quick topic mapping. This is page number 8 again. And as per the topic of UPSC syllabus, this associates with GS paper 2. And GS paper 2, why? Because we are talking about the Food Security Act. We are talking about the public distribution system in India, and we are talking about food processing. Then also GS paper 3 because it relates with Indian agriculture. Absolutely well answered. Absolutely well answered. That's correct. Rishi, Mamta, wonderful. Wonderful. And all others, please try to answer the question. If you answer these questions, it makes sure that you are relating very well to the articles in the Hindu that we are discussing right now. It's a great revision exercise for you. So GS paper 3, back to this article, page number 8, it relates really well with agriculture reforms in India. And in general, it talks about food security in the long run. So if this is the topic mapping of the article, let's quickly see what is the main point made by the article here. The main point that the article makes is that it begins by giving you a very important data actually. And the data is coming from a United Nations report. This report is known as United Nations SOFI report. Okay, and you should know these statistics because you can write them in your answers in the mains. In the GS paper 3, should you get a question about malnourishment, food security in India, then this is the kind of latest data that you should highlight. And the article is beginning by such a data. It says, according to the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report, SOFI report 2025. There are about 673 million people in the world who are undernourished. Now, undernourished is a little different from hungry. Hungry means somebody who is not getting sufficient quantity of calories. For example, if my daily calorie requirement should be 2200 per day and I am not getting near about that. I'm getting much lesser than say 2000. In terms of quantity, I am not getting the sufficient number of calories. it's considered to be hungry. But in case the total number of calories are sufficient for a person and still the person is not getting the right kind of nutrition from food. Say, for example, calories are there, but they are coming from sources like pure sugars, carbohydrates, and starches. But there is an acute deficiency of vitamins, minerals, protein, essential fatty acids in the diet, then that becomes malnourishment. Sometimes malnourishment is also referred to as hidden hunger because you do get the total number of calories from your diet, but these are not sufficient for a healthy system. So, hence, this becomes hidden hunger. Now, there is another more Indian centric problem, that's protein hunger. But that's slightly more different. We are talking about the hidden hunger, malnourishment, undernutrition. Here we are saying, as per the United Nations SOFI report, presently there are about 673 million people in the world who are undernourished. Now, this actually is so much that it is almost 8.4% of the global population. You can imagine how much it is. As per the 2024 estimate, it is about 8.4% of the entire world population. Second thing is that despite some improvement from 2023 level, still the number of people who are undernourished and hungry happens to be about 7.3% as compared to the pre-pandemic level. So for example, if in pre-pandemic level, that's 2018, it was 7.3, today it is much higher. So after 2020, the number of undernourished and hungry people has only been increasing. And it's quite high. About 8.4% of the entire world population is experiencing hidden hunger. That's what the report says. But the report also says that in such a difficult situation, there is one good thing that India has done a lot of improvement in bringing down the level of the number of hungry and undernourished people. For example, talking about India, today India claims of having an excellent public distribution system where the government is earmarking a certain percentage of the entire food produce, cereals, staples, pulses, oils, only to be distributed to those who are living below the poverty line on the basis of ration cards, Aadhaar cards. This strong system, alongside strong nutritional programs, the Eat Right Mission, Poshan Abhiyan, okay, all these have also resulted in wonders for India. Similarly, digitization, digital innovation in public distribution system, linking ration cards through Aadhaar, creating one portal online through which all the people who should be getting the benefit of public distribution system are tracked and monitored. All these have worked in the favor of India to create a much better situation when it comes to global food crisis. Now let's remember 2020, the time of pandemic. That time the global hunger was too much. Hunger, hidden hunger, all of them were going beyond the roof. Why? If you remember, there was a very interesting report created by Oxfam, an NGO, international NGO. It said that during the pandemic, it was the 3C phenomena that had created acute hunger in the world. One C was conflict, another C was climate change, and the third C was COVID pandemic. These three contributed to a situation where by 2024 we are seeing close to 8.4% people in the world are going hungry and malnourished. So if that's the situation, how come in India today we are saying that overall number of people who are malnourished, undernourished has reduced from 14.3% in 2020 to about 12% in 2024? Another good news, in India, there are today 30 million people who have escaped hunger, which means 30 million people are now getting proper nourishment as compared to earlier. They are not going hungry anymore. So, as per the article, what are the agendas that have led to this huge success for India? Talking quickly about these agendas, the very first point that India has made for reducing the number of people who are hungry, improving food security has been, as I said, a much better public distribution system. Not only through linking people's Aadhaar cards on a digital mode, tracking, monitoring through online portal. But India has made sure that we have done a wonderful Aadhaar enabled tracking, which means for all the people who need the benefit of public distribution system, we have been able to track that in real time. That's one thing that has worked in our favor. Second thing that has worked wonderfully for us was the One Nation, One Ration card scheme. Under this scheme also, we made sure that people who are migrants or the people who are internally displaced, who are migrating from one place to another, like migrant workers, agriculture workers, these people were benefited by One Nation, One Ration card scheme. Because irrespective of whichever place, whichever state they were migrating into, they could use the same ration card to get the benefit from public distribution shops, which are often referred to as ration shops or fair price shops. Okay, fair price shops. The government outlets which distribute free ration to people below the poverty line and above the poverty line on the basis of the cards that they hold. So this scheme has been really helpful in tracking people despite their migration. Last but not the least, we have also been able to create a wonderful online biometric system which makes sure there is no duplicacy. Once issued, we know the beneficiaries who have received the benefit for a particular month. Plus, we have the online inventory, which shows how much ration has actually been decentralized and allocated to which particular shop within which month. So, all of that has made the process much more smoother. Plus, during COVID, India stood tall in the world by supporting 800 million people in solving their hunger problem. So, now what is the agenda? If we have achieved all these wonderful things, what is the new agenda for 2025? As per the article, now what we need is a shift in the policy from solving the problem of hunger to now looking at nutrition. It is as good as saying that earlier we were tackling the problem of acute chronic hunger, people not getting any food to eat, no calories. Today we have addressed that successfully by all these means. What do we need now? Now we need to tackle the hidden hunger problem. We all know India is marred by the problem of acute hidden hunger, protein hunger, vitamin deficiencies of various kinds, iron deficiency, folate deficiency, calcium deficiency among the young working age population, especially the reproductive age women. As I said once to you, 57% Indian women from 15 to 49 years are victims of anemia. They don't have sufficient iron in the body. When this is the situation, then today's 2025 agenda should be to move towards nourishment. Yes, we can get calories, but let's make sure the calories are coming from the right source. We get a better nutrition profile. So, how can we do that? Of course, we talk about the Green Revolution period here. From 1960s, ever since the Green Revolution happened in India, of course, it helped the problem of hunger in a big way because the government started giving minimum support price to cereals like rice, wheat, and pulses. But what really suffered was healthier food items like vegetable, like fruit. Horticulture was not given a minimum support price. Millets. Millet was one area which grossly suffered due to the Green Revolution. Farmers started getting minimum support price on rice and wheat. Farmers started cultivating that. We went into monoculture, especially states like Punjab, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, where majority of the farmers, particularly the higher land owning farmers and the medium farmers, they were the ones who shifted towards monocropping, only growing rice, only growing wheat, only cultivating some kind of oil cakes and pulses because they were getting benefit from that. The government was buying it directly through minimum support price scheme. What suffered? Millets suffered. Organic food suffered. Nobody was growing that. What was the result? In just 2-3 decades, by 1990s, India already became the diabetic capital of the world. Because then, if only wheat and rice and sugar was being cultivated, people were eating that. Nobody was bothered about eating high fiber or better nutrition dense foods. We already paid a price for that. No wonder back in 2023, the government said, let's celebrate the International Year of Millets. Let's go back to eating our local native crops. Today, that's the need again. We need to diversify from the sole cultivation of rice, wheat, and pulses into cultivating millets, into horticulture, into creating local plants and local crop varieties. For example, PM Poshan Shakti Nirman. It's a wonderful initiative which focuses on creating initiatives like Poshan Vatika. What is Poshan Vatika? Under PM Poshan, the government says that all the government schools in various districts, they can create small vegetable gardens where children can learn how to grow native crops like millets, fruits, and vegetables. They can be then consumed within the school campus, distributed in the village community. It's a wonderful way of going to organic agriculture, going back to native agriculture. Second thing, what we can do is we can create more, we can push strongly missions like the integrated child food schemes like the ICDS, focusing on child nutrition at least in the Anganwadi schools where we are talking about the pre-primary education. Anyways, the government is giving one free day a meal in government schools. Let this meal be more focused towards millets and local food varieties rather than only rice, wheat, or sugary foods. A step away from carbohydrate oriented foods. Second thing, there are certain challenges that we have to address. For example, 60% Indians today are unable to afford a healthy, balanced meal. Why? Because the vegetables are expensive. Vegetable and fruits, they need not only better and more land for cultivation, but also they need better cold storage and better supply chains. They get rotten very easily. They are perishable foods. Therefore, most of this food gets rotten in warehouse or most of it gets spoiled during transportation. So we need to invest better in our supply chains like cold storage, much better cold storage, longer supply chains, so that food should not waste and it should be stored better. It can reach the consumers better on a much better scale rather than rotting. That's one thing. Second thing is that the government should also make sure that farmers who are engaging in horticulture should be given some minimum support price. For example, Kerala had become the first state back in 2021 when the government started giving minimum support price to Kerala farmers in Kerala for growing vegetable. That was a wonderful thing done by the government. We should have this for more states now. We should also make sure that these farmers who are growing the local crops and into horticulture, they should be enabled better market access so that they can earn better. Once they earn better, they will be encouraged to go for more horticulture or more polycropping culture. Polycropping where they can grow variety of crops together in the same land. This will in the long term help us in restoring soil fertility, which has already been destroyed because of monocropping of rice and wheat. Okay. Now, apart from that, hunger is something that is about micronutrient deficiency. In India, we are seeing today non-communicable diseases are on the rise. We know we are already the heart attack capital of the world, the diabetic capital of the world. There is a gross increase in the cases of liver diseases, kidney diseases, pancreatic disorders, cancers, thyroids, PCOD, reproductive illness. All that is specially owing to food oriented deficiencies. We can address this problem by making sure that people who lack affordability get a better affordability of foods which have micronutrients in them. Now, last but not the least, let's make sure that we prevent PDS leakage from happening. Now, PDS leakage word is very important in your answer writing in GS paper 3. Public distribution system. There are leakages in the system. What kind of leakages? Sometimes the food is wasted. Suppose the roads have broken down because of high rainfall. What is happening in Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh? When roads break down, the trucks are stalled for days sometimes. This leads to poor, gross wastage of perishable foods like vegetable, fruits, and all of that. Now that's a loss. That's a leakage in the PDS system. Sometimes the warehouse does not have adequate cold storage facilities. There is a pest and rodent infection, fungal infection. Again, there is a PDS leakage. Sometimes food is not actually reaching the targeted beneficiary. Rather, it's diverted to export markets or it's diverted to other supply chain. Again, that's PDS leakage. We have to work on making this stronger. Last but not the least, awareness is really important. So, not only do we need to completely make sure that nutrition rich foods like pulses, fruits, vegetables have to be much better invested upon in terms of cold storage, better inventory maintaining by the related authorities. But we also need to empower women, self-help groups who are then able to go and create awareness at the village level regarding right food intake, adequate food intake for mothers, for children, for aging people, through panchayat seminars, through Anganwadi seminars, through Asha workers. That can be done. Or simply, what we can do is we can also encourage the local farmers to grow climate resilient crops. Now, millets are again a great solution here. Millets do not need high maintenance, they can survive in drought and rainfall. And they need very little investment. They need hardly any pesticide to any fertilizer, and yet they are very nutritious. So, definitely, that's a great solution to go towards. Now, we need to create more online tools. Let's use artificial intelligence here. Create tools like the AgriStack, ENAM, geospatial tools, so that we can have a better satellite mapping of all the supply chain agriculture from farm to fork. All this system can be better planned so that food reaches the right beneficiaries. Last but not the least, India has already made a great feat in making sure that many people have now escaped hunger and poverty. So let this AI driven technology improve our agriculture more, improve our supply chain even more, address the PDS leakage so that in future India can once again make a tall name when it comes to contributing to the sustainable development goal 2, that is zero hunger everywhere in the world by 2030. That's what the article says. Now, quickly, a prelims question for you. Question says, with reference to food security and nutrition, consider the following statements with reference to India. 1. The One Nation, One Ration Card scheme allows portability, that's shifting of food benefits across states. You can have a ration card in one district, you can still use it to get free ration if you are coming from the poor background, or if you are the targeted beneficiary, you can get the ration anywhere else in any other state. Is that true? 2. Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Nirman PM Poshan scheme is aimed only at providing midday meals in schools without any focus on diet diversity. So, which means the earlier midday meal scheme, which is now known as the PM Poshan Nirman scheme, does it only focus upon providing one free meal a day? Does it not talk about creating this meal more diverse or more nutrition rich in different ways? Last, India's agri food system faces huge loss after harvesting. About 13% food gets wasted from the agriculture land until it reaches the market. So please pick out the right option, and yes, you can post your answer in the comment box. Now let's quickly see another article. This is page number 10. And if you do a topic mapping of the article, then this is GS paper 2, and we are talking about polity. We are talking about governance. Okay, there is a confusion between option number B and C. Think again, and then we can confirm the answer. Polity, governance, and this article talks about constitutional provisions. Now, talking about the article itself, article talks about a controversy that has broken. A controversy that has broken out between the government at the center and the ministers, or the ministers of assembly at the union territory level. It's almost like a constitutional controversy, where on the one hand you have the central government, and on the other hand you have the people in the union territory led by the lieutenant governor. The controversy is that who should decide the nominations to union territory assemblies? Who will decide? Is it only the central government who can decide this through its lieutenant governor, who is the representative of the center at the UT level? Or should it be decided by the elected government of the union territory itself, where there is a assembly or there is a union territory legislative assembly? Who should decide the nomination? Now, nomination in Indian constitution is nothing new. We all know that until 2020, we used to allow a lot of nomination even to the Lok Sabha and even to the state legislative assemblies in various states. Okay, remember in Lok Sabha, Anglo-Indian community members would be nominated. Similar was true for the state legislative assemblies. Now this policy has been discontinued. But then even today, in India, we have a constitutional provision wherein in the Rajya Sabha, that's the upper house of the parliament, it is the president who does nominate about 12 members coming from diverse backgrounds. Similar is true for legislative councils, whichever states have these councils. So nomination to assemblies is nothing new for India. It is a well known reality. But today the controversy has broken down very badly. That who will decide that this nomination is making sense when it comes to union territory itself? Or should it not be done? Because it is interfering too much with the internal functioning of the union territory. Why did this issue become such a hot topic for the day? The reason is a recent affidavit that has been given by, so the reason is an affidavit, okay, that was actually given by the Union Home Ministry. And where was it given? The affidavit was given before Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh High Court. As per the affidavit, the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir can nominate 5 members. 5 members to the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly without consulting the elected members of the Council of Ministers of Jammu Kashmir Assembly. So the Lieutenant Governor has the upper hand and he can nominate 5 members. This, with backing from the center government, is absolutely okay. Now, this affidavit itself is the root cause of the controversy. The problem is that government at the center feels that what is so wrong about nominations? Why are the people or the members of Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, Council of Ministers, having such a big problem? If the Lieutenant Governor is nominating only 5 members to the Assembly, because in India, we know that even today, as I said, Rajya Sabha has 12 members nominated by the President. State legislative councils also. 1/6 membership is going by the state governor. It is nominated by people who have some excellent record in various fields like arts, literature, teaching, and all of that. Earlier, as I said, until 2020, even Lok Sabha used to have 2 Anglo-Indian representatives. So, representation in parliament, whether it's state, whether it's center, whether it's union territory, is nothing new. But today the controversy has been created because it is the members of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly who feel that the nominated members sometimes start becoming too powerful because they carry the central government's agenda. Thank you so much, Nikhil. That's extremely kind of you. I hope you enjoy this article as well. Now, talking about the controversy back again. These members in the Council of Ministers of Jammu Kashmir Assembly are feeling threatened that if 5 members are coming nominated by the Lieutenant Governor, what if they start claiming too much power and they drive the central government's agenda in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly? Then what happens? We will lose our internal autonomy. We will use our, say in the internal issues, in the internal management of our local issues. So that's what is basically causing this controversy. So ultimately, the controversy is rooted in 2 such decisions taken by the Supreme Court in the past. For example, in 2021, during the Pondicherry case, Supreme Court said that the union government can nominate MLAs directly without any consultation or permission of the government of the union territory. Lieutenant Governor has the right to do that. Union government can do it through the Lieutenant Governor. But in 2023, when it came to Delhi, then the Supreme Court said that there is a concept called triple chain of accountability. Now, this is the most important agenda of this article for GS paper 2. Triple chain of accountability. This time the Supreme Court has differed a little bit. Now it said that although the union government, through its representative Lieutenant Governor, who is in charge of the union territory, has the right to nominate the members, but we cannot ignore. We cannot ignore the position of the Council of Ministers, of the MLAs, of the Assembly of the UT itself. We cannot ignore them. We have to be bound by their advice and consultation because we need a triple chain of accountability. Union government on the one hand, Lieutenant Governor on the other, and the United Union Territories government on the third. It has to be a triangle. It has to be an agreement between all these three that ensures complete democracy, transparency, and constitutional integrity. So we need this three chain of commands. So the Lieutenant Governor, therefore, in the case of Delhi, is bound by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers because the assembly has power over there. So now these two judgments are conflicting each other. No wonder today people in Jammu Kashmir are having a problem. They are saying that in union territories like Jammu and Kashmir, they have limited autonomy. Let's not forget that they were states until 2019, full-fledged states. They were not union territories all throughout. Till 2019, they had complete autonomy. They were proper states. Only from 2019 onwards, their status was changed to a union territory. So, therefore, why are we making them so subservient to the orders of the union government? Why are today we ignoring the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers in the Jammu Kashmir Assembly? Why are we giving the right to the Lieutenant Governor to put 5 members of his choice as per the union government's command in the Assembly itself? So, therefore, the people in Jammu Kashmir say that today the nomination process should be governed by Government of Union Territories Act 1963 and Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019. We do not want a member nominated by the Lieutenant Governor because in assemblies as small as these, few selected MLAs can completely change the direction of functioning of this assembly on the one hand. Second thing, if the union government continues to try to, dominate the Jammu Kashmir Assembly through center's lieutenant governor, then the complete power will tilt towards the union government itself. Then what is the point of India being a federal country in the first place? We are defying the logic that India is a union of states. We are defying the federal structure of the constitution completely. Last but not the least, as per the people in Jammu Kashmir Assembly, it is completely a question of democracy. By nominating center sponsored members in the assembly, we are completely snatching the local autonomy and placing all the power in the hands of the union government. This completely denies the logic of giving any autonomy to the union territory. This is the main debate the article talks about. So let's see what's the solution that comes to this impasse between the center and the members associated from Jammu Kashmir Assembly. Quite important from the perspective of GS paper 2 polity. Now let's look at the question. With reference to the nomination of members to union territory legislative assemblies, there are some points you should see and then pick out the valid one. One says the Government of Union Territories Act 1963 empowers the union government to nominate members to the Puducherry Legislative Assembly. 2. Under the Jammu Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019, the Lieutenant Governor may nominate 5 members to Jammu Kashmir Legislative Assembly. And 3. As per the Constitution, Lieutenant Governor of any union territory must act only with the aid and advice of elected Council of Ministers while nominating these members. This exactly touches upon the debate that we spoke about in the article. So if you did understand the debate that we spoke about, the question is not difficult. Try to pick up the valid answer and post your answer in the comment box for us. And now let's proceed with the last article for the day quickly. This is page number 13. It talks about how the government has introduced a new bill. The purpose of the bill is to reduce the burden on Indian prisons. Second, to promote ease of doing business. 3. To avoid unnecessarily giving criminal punishments to those who have committed petty crimes, smaller crimes, which can be forgiven, which can be ignored by just a small fees or a fine imposed on them, or a small penalty is enough. In that case, we do not need to send such minor offenders to the jail and unnecessarily let them languish in Indian prisons without any provision of bail, because most of these come from poor backgrounds. So if you do a quick topic mapping, then yes, definitely we can say that this comes from GS paper 2. We are talking about polity and governance. Okay, very interesting article. That's absolutely valid answer. The second response that you gave is absolutely a valid answer. Good job. Great. Absolutely. Thank you, Mamta, for your response. Let's quickly look at then what is the article say. The article says that long back, please go back to 2023. Just 2 years before, the government had passed Jan Vishwas Act. Very, very important to remember. Very important. Tomorrow, if you get a question in GS paper 2 on Indian prison reforms, or why are there so many prisoners languishing in Indian prisons, rotting in Indian prisons, despite the provision of bail having been made more accessible by the government? Or should you get a question on judicial delays in India? Then this is absolutely the right thing you have to mention, the very valid point you have to mention. 2023 was Jan Vishwas Act. This was the first such act in India which spoke about decriminalization. Decriminalization, making something that is a criminal offense into something that is considered non-criminal offense. Petty crime, minor crime that can be forgiven, that can be ignored, that can be left with a warning or a minor penalty, but for that nobody needs to be sent to a jail. That is what is decriminalization. Okay? Forgiving, condoning the punishment on something. That's decriminalization. As you have seen earlier in the Constitution, Section 377, Section 309. Okay, recently we spoke about a very interesting one, IPC. Which section was that, if you remember? So, Jan Vishwas Act 2023 was the first great solid attempt at decriminalization of certain laws in India that were becoming obsolete. They were unnecessary. This Jan Vishwas Act had decriminalized 183 provisions distributed across 42 central acts in India. Okay, and these came under the jurisdiction of about 19 departments or 19 ministries of the central government. Today, this 2025 bill that we are talking about is an elaboration of the same. So, what are the new features of this 2025 bill that has been introduced today? And will this actually lead to prison reform in India? Let's see. A major feature is that this new bill is changing, it's amending 355 provisions across 16 central government acts. For example, 288 provisions which were earlier considered as criminal will now be decriminalized. 288 provisions. Similarly, 67 provisions will also be changed to make the punishment much less strong, much less acute. This is to promote ease of doing business, ease of living in India. Okay, ease of living means where you are not getting punished for every small or minor act done by you. This will obviously promote a better way of life, much better livability for people, much more freedom and autonomy for people within the bounds of law. Now, first time offenses. Some people who commit a small offense for the first time, a stealing, a robbery. Okay, in such a case or a financial fraud, 76 offenses under 10 acts will be now decriminalized. Only a warning will be issued. Punishment will not be given immediately. That's a great step. Second thing is that for small defaults, such as a minor technical problem, say in medical, say in any factory, in any industry, in any manufacturing equipment, if there is any minor technical mistake that has happened, if there is an operational fault that takes place, even then jail will not happen, monetary fine will be imposed. Again, that will make it much easy for people to live and operate. Then penalties will be, suppose if somebody is again and again repeating an offense. There has been a person, an offender who was forgiven, but multiple times the same offense has been done. Repeated offenses have happened. In that case, again, instead of immediately sending the person into the prison under CRPC, we will actually wait and keep on increasing the fines on them, give them more financial penalty, give them a chance to improve or to stop. Parliamentary scrutiny. Now, before a strong punishment like jail term will be given, a select committee of the parliament will examine the case so that there is no political bias involved in sending somebody to jail. In India, in just the last 5 years, GST and tax evasions have created multiple businesses to shut down and many more entrepreneurs to be behind bars for months altogether. At the same time, we see minor offenders like a small case of theft, a small case of robbery, a case of, say, chain snatching. Such offenders are also in jail for more than 5 years, although the punishment was barely about 6 to 7 months. But they had no money to buy the bail bond, or there was nobody to actually go and arrange a lawyer for them, or there was nobody who could support them through a bail bonding process. So in that case, not only is the burden on prisons increasing, the living standard in the prisons is getting worse from bad. To avoid such unnecessary prison, to avoid unnecessary delays of cases before the Supreme Court, High Courts, and the local courts, it's a great intervention. Okay, great intervention to actually help people escape by either giving a monetary fine or by at least getting a chance to improve rather than immediately being sent behind the bar. Now, this is definitely a very significant act. Why? Because it promotes ease of living and doing business in India with a thriving economy with massive population. Similarly, it reduces the fear of being pushed into criminal act for any small crime for an entrepreneur, say for a citizen. Similarly, this completely changes the agenda of government from forceful criminalization of people into willing compliance. Rather than forcing a person out of fear to follow a law by giving them strong punishments like imprisonment for years, it's a way better thing to give them a chance and then slowly give them certain punishments, but give them a chance to follow those rules out of respect. Follow the rules out of the fact that the government is also being kind and government is giving them a chance to actually improve on themselves. So it is from criminalization to compliance facilitation. People will learn to obey laws better rather than the fear of going to jail. It should be abiding by the law that should refrain people from committing crimes. Last but not the least, ultimately it's about the regulatory reforms agenda that the Indian government has been considering for a long time now. So with this, the last question. This is the prelims question with reference to the Jan Vishwas amendment provisions, the new bill in 2025. Some following statements are there. 1. It proposes to amend provisions across more than 40 central acts. Is that true? 2. It builds upon the Jan Vishwas Act of 2023, which was the first consolidated law to decriminalize minor offences. Very easy one. 3. The 2025 bill provides for imprisonment in case of repeated first-time offences. So which of these statements is or are true? You can pick out the right code and post your answer in the live chat box, in the comment box later. With this, I bring this session to an end. Okay, but the last news for the day before I forget. This is just a news in the passing. It says that the de-escalation is now on the radar for India and China. A quick GS paper 2, International Relations News, India-China Relations. And where have I taken this from? This is the front page, The Hindu, the page number 1. Quickly, just 2 minutes more for this. According to this news, as India has been battered by the US 50% tariff, yes, India is looking for newer partnerships. It's time when old enemies are trying to be new friends. India is now trying to maintain border peace, better relations, more trade with China. Yes, because India-China had been experiencing a very broken relationship in the past. Remember the Galwan Valley. Remember China suddenly giving us a supply shock by stopping the exports of rare earth metals. By China threatening to invade into India's territory in the northeastern region. From that to today, as the Prime Minister is now going to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Summit in China, India and China are having clear-cut target to normalize the relationship. But the personal agendas are different. For India, it is about first, maintain border peace. First, respect territorial integrity, and only then we can think of normalizing relationship. But for China, border disputes are different and trade and cooperation are different. Why mix both? Let's treat them differently, and let's try to promote better trade cooperation. Interestingly, China also hinted at atrocity being committed by US. Without taking the name of the US, indirectly China said that US-led domination by such unrealistic tariff regime doesn't make any much sense. So China agrees on India's position, at least with respect to US tariffs and its sudden illogical policies. Now, there has been a meeting that has taken place between Chinese Foreign Minister and India's External Minister Shri Jaishankar. The agenda would be definitely to control the tensions across line of control, promote better trade, bilateral relations, and all this upcoming to the Shanghai Cooperation Summit. So India is saying that, you know, ever since the Galwan Valley clash happened, there has been a kind of pros that has come into the ties of both these countries. So let's try to completely break down, dismantle the new infrastructure that China has been building across the line of control since 2020. That will really help the relation to become much more smooth. And they are also saying that let's focus better on the boundary dispute issue. Now, China says that today we are living in difficult times. He is hinting at the US tariff. He says that today international order is becoming like unilateral bully. US is becoming that unilateral bully. So better trade ties between India and China can actually help in easing out this tension. This is just a small coverage, and once the meeting is around the corner, we will see many more developments happening. With this, the last question before I leave, it is about India-China relations. The three statements are following. One, the special representative talks between India and China are aimed at solving boundary issues mainly. Two, India maintains that peace along the line of control is a prerequisite, it's a condition for improving overall bilateral relations. And three, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization was originally created with participation of India and China as founding members. Very easy question. Pick out the right statement, A, B, C, or D, and yes, you can post your answer to us definitely. It is not a fundamental right, Rishi. Definitely, it comes under the ambit of a legal right. It is not a fundamental right. Okay. So, with this, thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this session. Absolutely well answered, Rishi. That's wonderful. I'll see you tomorrow with another interesting coverage of the Hindu. In the meantime, if you like this session, then please do like, share, and subscribe. And you can keep on posting the answers whenever you get the time to solve them and share them on the comment box. For any other comment, any other thing that you would like to share, of course, the comment box is always open for you. Valid answer, Mamta. So, with that, thank you and see you.